I don't know if you notice this, folks, but the well-networked people are stealing your deals. Yes, we are seeing opportunities go down, and we didn't even get a sniff at them. They're not going on the MLS. They're not going on LoopNet. They're not going on Crexy, because all of these well-networked individuals are getting the best deals, the gold bars, the platinum bars, the diamonds, right from under all of us. What can you do about it? We're going to have this conversation with the one and only Jonathan Twanley. How you doing, buddy? What's going on?
I'm doing well. So, what's going on is I'm starting to see and hear little rumors and, posts here and there by people who have been snagging up off-market deals out of foreclosure.
Yeah.
And these are not necessarily coming to market, although I have to say I have been seeing a few also trickle through my inbox now that are like REO deal, lender forced deal. But I'm also seeing, I think, a little more of deals that are basically hearing about them after the fact.
The ink is dry and we're hearing about them.
Someone's posting online that they just bought this deal, or maybe they're raising capital for it, but they've got a sweetheart of a deal where they put up, little to no money. They're just assuming the debt, and they're going to have to put in some CapEx, and, no one else knew about the deal. Right. So this is kind of how it happens. Right. I remember in 2011, even that late, we're still hearing about deals like this where people were, if they were connected, they were getting, offers to buy 10,000 homes for, 7,000 a pop. Right.
Yep.
I mean, obviously have to have a lot of money to buy 10,000 homes, even at 7,000 a pop. But if you were connected and on the list, you got access to this stuff. So we're starting to see that happen again. I don't think we're going to have the same kind of like mass portfolios of foreclosed deals like we did before, but I think we're definitely seeing just stuff blow up and get handed off to people who are ready to close and have already established relationships with the banks and with the brokers who handle these things sort of quietly for the banks, for the lenders, and try to sort of dispatch these things quickly without a lot of fanfare.
Yeah, I think that last piece is the key to all this. I think it's fair to say, as I open, deals are being taken, out from under the public because the public's not aware of them. I think that's all valid. What may not have been obvious in that opening statement is it always happens this way.
Yes.
And that's the key. And that's quite frankly why you and I have been talking for 4 or 5 years, and you've always been very big on get your ass out there and network with people. Yes, you're going to network before there's any deals. And that's because you're trying to be on that top 3 list, right? I believe every broker, every bank has a top 3 investor list, and they go to them first. And then if they don't nibble or bite, then they maybe go to the top 10. And then only at that point do they go, okay, list the thing. Because banks, to your point at the end there, they don't want their name splashy in the newspaper and recognizing big losses. They just want it done with no fanfare. And that's why you've been teaching, talking, leading. Guys, go network, make phone calls, follow up, get to know them, so you can get on that list, right?
Yeah, exactly. And listen, it is not too late for this. Just the fact that we're starting to hear about this doesn't mean that
we have years.
Is gone.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a very much a slow moving train wreck, and there is absolutely time for you to meet the right people. And as I've said before on this channel, if you like whatever town or city you live in, talk with those local bankers. You can use your own network to figure out who those people are, get warm introductions to them, and just start talking to them. Just let them know who you are, that you're serious, that you have a particular thing that you're really interested in, and just keep those relationships warm. Because when these things come up, the interests of these REO officers is going to be how to dispose of this portfolio in the most efficient, kind of judicious manner. And they already have investors that they know are interested. Of course, they're going to talk to them first, or they're going to direct the brokers to talk to them first. Yep. So, and also talk with the brokers, because if the banks are not disposing of these assets themselves, and they probably aren't really doing it directly, they are going to be hiring brokers. And who are those brokers going to be? Well, whoever is like the most prominent multifamily or commercial
Yeah.
broker in your area is probably going to be getting some of these. Maybe some of the big brokerages are going to be getting some of them, especially if these folks are dealing with portfolios like across the country, right? They're going to take it to one of the big shops that has bigger coverage, but just get to know who those people are, get to know them, form relationships, and let them know what you're looking for. If your absolute maximum deal size that you can put together is like a $5 million deal, because you either got the money yourself or you can put it together with some partners, go talk to those people and let them know, because guaranteed, like, they're going to have a big portfolio of, like, if you're talking with the bigger shops, like, deals with hundreds of units that are, $20-50 million deals. And then they're going to have like some little things, and they're gonna, like, none of their institutional buyers are going to want those. They're going to be like, what am I going to do with these things? If you're there already saying, hey, I'm looking for that $2.5 million, $3 million deal, they may not know anybody else looking for that. Right. So you want to be in that position.
Yeah. Let me see if this decision tree works. Again, this is how I see it, right? You're a bank, you're a lender on an asset. You did the deal in 21, 22. You thought it was solid. It's now 2026. You have to refi. The values collapse because cap rates collapse. We all know the story. So the bank knows they have a problem. They likely have a folder, or I've seen it with the problem properties. So their first decision tree is, when they've identified this property, is do we know anybody in our network that could pick this? And again, they have another folder of performing assets and performing borrowers. And they say, does one of them want this?
Yeah.
Then what they say, if none of those people want it, then they probably go to their brokerage friends and go, hey, do you have anybody that wants this? And then if they don't want it, then it probably goes on the public market. Is that kind of how the decision tree works, you think?
I think that's exactly how it's going to work. You will see the lenders go to their best borrowers first.
Right.
The people who are the most competent, and especially, and it's probably a little too late to develop this expertise, but maybe for the next time, because there will be a next time, those people who have developed an expertise in taking over troubled properties and turning them around, right? Because a lot of these properties will, because they're in financial distress, there's no money to keep them out of physical distress as well, and they will deteriorate, which means that they're not going to be easy to sell, right? And if you have the expertise of being able to take over a property that's half empty, fix what needs to be fixed, and stabilize it quickly, and you have a track record of doing that, the banks are going to come to you and say, I have this asset, I have this problem, help solve this problem for me. And if you can ever be in a position where you can solve a problem for a bank, right? I mean, there's no better negotiator, because I've done this one time. So I have a sample size of one, than negotiating directly with the bank, right? A small community bank, 2-3 branches. To sell the story, in case you haven't heard it, we owned a property, a 10-unit building. We bought it. It was totally distressed. It was a private note that blew up. So we bought it and we were repairing it. And little did we know, the building next door was also in financial distress, but this one was owned by the community, by a community bank. We did nothing. I get a phone call out of the blue, and I honestly, Jonathan, thought it was one of my friends punking me, because they said, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, bank president of, blah, 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 community bank. And I'm like, I never had a phone call like that before. And I'm like, I really did think one of my friends is punking me. I'm thinking, like, whose voice is this, or who's pretending with me? And I said, okay, nice to meet you. How can I help you? And he goes, are you the owner of 123 Main Street? And I go, yes, I am. He goes, I own 234 Main Street. I've seen the building. And he goes, I like what you're doing there. Would you like another one? Would you like to buy mine? And, in fairness, my building was much worse. Probably, I mean, if you're on a scale, right, of value add, the one I had was wrecked. His at least had some tenants, not many, but some. So it was nothing I would live in, but there were people living there. So there was some cash flow, or at least some rent. And he says, I know what you paid for your building. I will honor that price. So I'm already interested, right? Because I bought a shell essentially. And I said, yeah, okay, I could do that. And he goes, let's meet at the building this weekend and we'll go through it. So he matched the price, 0 down.
He didn't ask for any money down. He gave me below market interest rate, 30-year AM, 5-year fixed, which is pretty common for commercial properties. And the only thing he asked for, Jonathan, was $50,000 deposited at his bank. That was the only thing he wanted from us besides some signatures.
Wow.
And I'm like, heck yeah. I mean, let's go, right? Nothing down, 0 down, below market interest rate. And yeah, I mean, that was, it still blows me away. To your point, there are some small banks that have loans and they're just going to go to the people that they know. And he didn't know us from Adam. Clearly he researched us. He knew our portfolio, but what he saw is we took the disgusting units next door and we were throwing $100,000 or more at it. And he's like, give me some of that guy. Cause again, I'm going to care about that building, right? If he sold it to someone else, he doesn't know, but if he sold it to the same owners who now own half the block, they're, the thinking is, they're going to care more than anybody else. So I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's a great story. And that's kind of what happens when you put yourself in a position where you can solve the bank's problem, right? I've got a good friend, a syndicator named Bruce Frazier.
Oh yeah, I know Bruce, or no, Bruce.
Bruce does nothing of Elkhorn Capital, by the way, if you want to look him up. And Bruce does nothing but take on heavily distressed projects in.
I think I've read a story about him. Yeah,
in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa,
right?
Oklahoma. Yeah,
and that's all he does, Tulsa, right? And he is now.
He is that guy, right? He's like, we got one of those. Call Bruce.
He is the guy who the banks go to first when they have a project that is a mess, right? And he has so much opportunity. He has to turn most of it down, right? Because there's also his, now his buy box has become so narrow because he can afford to be picky.
Exactly.
That he just cherry picks the absolute, like for him, easiest slam dunk deals to just rinse and repeat. And, if you can get, now obviously it takes time to get there. Bruce didn't start this yesterday, but this is possible for you to do. And if you start small, start with a small project that you can take down yourself, right? Do that one. Do another one.
I'm going to ask you for a favor, and I'm going to put this on record so like the audience will hopefully chime in as well. Could you do a warm introduction to Bruce? I would love to interview him on this channel.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Just to celebrate that success and really hopefully give folks nuggets if they wanted to start, being a mini Bruce, if you will. I think we have to encourage people and sometimes highlight what is possible. And a warm introduction would be very helpful, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it.
I appreciate it. So now let's walk people through this. So again, folks, deals are being snapped up each and every day, huge discounts. If you're in the office space, I'm seeing discounts to last sale price over 80%. I mean, those are some nasty numbers.
Office is rough. And, office is, especially in the smaller markets, right?
Second tier, tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. The markets that like when COVID happened and everybody was like, New York City is dead. San Francisco is dead. Like those are the markets that have boomed back, right? But it's the smaller, mostly Sunbelt cities, but Midwestern cities too, where those office markets are in dire shape. And, that's where you're seeing people picking up these properties for literally pennies on the dollar, so it is definitely a lot of distress out there. I'm also seeing a number of busted sort of conversion projects too.
Yeah, I've saw a couple of those too.
Yeah, where people have bought office buildings, the idea they were going to renovate them and convert them into multifamily, and very often it's been the case that they were then trying to convert multifamily in markets that were already saturated with new build multifamily, right? And so those deals have been
that's a tough compare. You got this class A shiny penny and you got this weird configuration foot plate, weird. Yeah. It's
not just that. You're just looking, even if it's really well done, it's like, you're going to just dump more supply into an oversupplied market. I mean, it's just, makes no sense. So,
let's get back to this. I love the fact that you brought this up after my opening. It's not too late to get started. Again, folks, this is happening. There's years ahead of us. There also will be another cycle. I love that you brought this up. So let's just hit people with what to do.
And I'll bring up one other thing too, which is that, let's not forget that there are always distressed deals in the market. There are always foreclosures in the market because there are always people who get over their skis.
Yeah.
Right.
Life events, health scares,
happen.
Stuff happens.
Yeah. Things happen. So like, Bruce was not picking up these crazy deals just in the last year or two. I mean, he's been picking up deals like this from banks for
That's
years
a great point.
because
That's a great point.
because you know, when the market was at its hottest, he was picking up deals like this. So it's all because he established, you know, a track record of doing those kinds of deals and doing them well. So
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So what was your question? You were
I was going to say, let's wrap this up and give people 3 action items. Do this, do this, do this. What would you say?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll give you I'll give you 3. One is try to find out the name and how you contact at least one REO officer, like near you from a local bank.
I like it.
First thing, figure out how to network with.
I'm sorry, just on number 1. Sometimes the name, like sometimes they're called asset managers. They may not be called REO agents, but you're looking for what they would call an asset manager at a lot of banks. But
whoever it is who is in charge of properties that the bank has taken back or is about to take back.
Correct.
Right. So whoever that person is at the bank,
like it. Okay.
Find out who they are and then see if you can get a warm introduction to them. And if you can't, just cold outreach and see if you can talk to them. Do that with a commercial broker as well. Find somebody who is well connected in the space. It's very easy to do that now. Just get on LoopNet, get on Crexy.
They're not hiding. Brokers are not hiding.
They are not hiding. You can find them very easily. Find out who those people are. And one tip on brokers is if you're feeling also like you don't have a track record and you don't know if these people are going to talk to you. When you ever see a listing for a commercial deal, there are like 5 people listed as brokers, and they're listed in order of seniority, right? So reach out to the lowest person on that totem pole. They are happy to talk to you because they are hungry to build their own book of business. They want clients that, nobody's talking to them yet. So talk to that person. They will talk to you. Then the last thing is go around and start talking to your friends about, who might be interested in investing alongside you if you find a good deal, right? Because you're going to need money to do this. And the more money you have, the better. You might need to put down a bigger down payment on something. I mean, I know, Mike and I have talked about being able to pick up deals for no money down. This is also possible, right? But it's helpful to have some cash.
Oh, you certainly should go into this in cash.
Yeah. So just start talking to your friends. I'm sure you already know who the friends are who have been like, oh yeah, I'd really like to get into real estate investing. Like start with those people, build a little group, put together a partnership of 4 or 5 people, just pool your resources and see who else you can bring in and just get some money ready for when one of these opportunities comes, because you'll have to move fast once it does.
Yeah. I love this advice. And also, of course, don't forget to join the free school community that Jonathan runs. It is school.com/AIC. This is his bailiwick. This is what he does, and he has fun. And according to all my ORAT friends, he is helping people, answering questions, talking to them live. He is the man. Jonathan, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just swing by my school group. Would love to see you there. And it's where we talk about this stuff all the time. And there are a couple of free courses in the group as well. So once you come in and you earn your 5 points to get to level 2, a whole bunch of good stuff is going to open up for you.
I did that too. You got to get people posting and interacting and get those first 5 points. I love that. Smart move. Thanks, Jonathan. Take care.
Thank you.